So here we are picking up where we left off on this Ionic app that we are building in the creator that focuses on some different types of controls and input output, getting data from the user and then being able to do something with that data so that we can output it correctly. So when we left off, we had our app hooked up with a nice array of different types of t-shirt sizes for our t-shirt ordering app. And so we were talking about how does each control know that it is on the model, basically, so that the data we are receiving from the item is usable in some format. And so we looked at how we added our data element.size property to our ng model. So I'm going to move on to our various radio buttons in our list here that tell us about our type of t-shirt. And so we're going to have two different Angular directives for each one of these. So the first one is going to be one of those ng model directives. And that's going to let our first radio button here, which we named blue graphic, know that it's part of data dot, we're just going to call it graphic. So data.graphic is going to be the same whether it's blue, green, or red. So in order to differentiate between the two different ones, we're also going to have ng value. So the ng value is kind of like with our array where we had our ID that we would pass and the label that we want to display. The value is going to be the actual value that we want to store inside of data.graphic. And so in double quotes, I'm going to put blue. And so I'm going to do this for each radio button. The next one, I'm going to have ng model, data.graphic, and ng value, green, double quotes. And then this one, ng model, data.graphic, ng value, red. So when we ask the model, what is the property or what is the value of data.graphic, it will either be blue, green, or red based on the value of the selected item. Now, I named it graphic here, but I actually probably should have named it type because that's what I use down here in this box. And I'm just going to change this to graphic instead. I should have paid attention to what I named stuff. So we can preview and make sure that that works as expected, because remember from our select box, we could choose medium. That's what shows up down here. I could choose blue, and now I see that value changes based on which item I have selected. So remember, this little box down here was just simply, for us to test and be able to say, hey, is that item, that property that I'm getting from the control actually being set on the model in this object that I've named data. Okay, so let's move on to our note. Remember, the note was just a text box. The user could give us some data. We need to add it on the model. So ng model under our Angular directive. We're going to name this data.note. Now we don't need to set a value on it because the value just comes from the user. We don't have to do anything special there. And same thing for our toggle, our rush shipping. So this is going to be ng model data dot, and we can see down here I named it rush shipping, like all one word. So that's what I'm going to put here. So we can go ahead and preview and make sure that each one of our items is being pre-filled in down here in this box. So basically just checking to make sure that our data is being set. So if I wanted a medium blue graphic t-shirt, let's say we just put a note goes here, right? We can see that the data is being populated down here, and then rush shipping true or false based on that toggle. So by using these template tags, is what these are called here in the double curly braces, we can check out the data in our model and make sure that it's actually coming through the way that we expect, and the values are definitely what we expect. Now coming down here to our code section, you'll notice that nowhere in my function or my controller for my page did I ever define this data element item that we're using. And you don't have to. Angular will just pick up on the fact that you're using it, and it will kind of implement it behind the scenes. But that's not really good coding style. So we could always do scope data, and that way you can even define some predefined values for each one of these things. So if we wanted to say that size should default to, and we could just do like scope dot sizes, which is our array up there, position 0 dot ID. So always defaulting to extra small. We could come in and say that our type or our graphic, graphic is what we named it, should have, or maybe always default to blue. If you wanted to set a default value for that, we could set our toggle or our rush shipping. You could set that. I probably don't want to set it. It's going to set it to false by default anyway. If we wanted to make sure our note was always blank, then we could just do single quote open close. Right, so that allows you to just like predefine your default property values for each of these elements in data. So now, if I saved that, come up in preview, you can see, okay, now this automatically pre-fills to extra small. This automatically checks blue, right? So that's just one way that you can set up some kind of default values for your object. But again, you don't have to define that. Just using it will kind of trigger Angular to be like, oh yeah, I totally have this data element with all these properties inside. Okay, so let's talk about how we pass data back and forth between a page or between different pages, and let's create another page. So we already had this page up here. Right now its name is just page. I'm going to make it the order page. So that's what it says up here at the top, and that's what it says over here in our pages section. So to add a new page, we click the add page button up here, and again we get kind of the same choices that you get when you set up your first project. So I'm going to choose a blank page, and I'm going to name this order confirmation. Now what I'm going to show you here is just how to display the information that we get from the user, and I'm going to use it in a paragraph. And we're going to display it again using these template tags. But this way we're going to set up an object on this page and kind of pre-fill in that information. So I'm going to call this order data. So we're going to create an object named order data. And when you have a whole object, like over here we had our data object, I can just call on the various property like data.size, data.graphic, and pull it out that way. Or if I have an object and I just say order data, it's going to just display all of the properties with their values in kind of a key value pair syntax when you do that, so you can at least see that it's there. So what we're going to do is pass the data from our order page that we've collected, all of these 4 properties. When they click order, over here to order confirmation, we're going to wrap it up in this order data object, and then that is what is going to be displayed. So let's walk through how we would do this. The first thing we're going to look at, let's go back to that order page and this order button. So there's 2 different ways that you can do this when you're using the Ionic creator. The first is to come up here to the link section when you have your button clicked on, so it says button here. And you can see that there are various ways that you can set up a button to act. The first one is to link to another page. This one is where you can link to a URL. So you see you click on it, you can put a URL here. You can link to an email where it will launch the default email client and send an email. Or you can link to a phone number where it will launch the phone dialer for the phone and call that number. So we want to link to another page. And so when you have your other page set up, it shows up in this drop-down list. So you can just say, I want this page. So right now, since I just did that, doesn't matter what I do here. If I click order, it takes me to the order confirmation page. It doesn't do anything yet because we haven't hooked it up. But you can see how that works, right? Because I just selected it from this drop-down list. It's perfectly okay to do it this way. However, there's a key piece that we're missing in that we have 4 pieces of data that we want to pass over to the other page. That other page doesn't know yet that it needs to expect that data. So let's come over to our order confirmation page, and these are called route parameters. So route parameters are kind of like parameters of a method where we define, hey, you need to expect these pieces of data in order to do your job. So when we click on add under route parameter, we can give it a name. So like we're expecting a size. Where do we get that size? Well, if you only put something here if you're having a default value, which we can set one, but I'm not going to. But we're expecting a size, we're expecting a graphic, we're expecting a note, and we're expecting something called rush shipping, right? And you can double check me that I named them size, graphic, note, rush shipping, right? So these are our 4 route parameters. We are telling the order confirmation page that it is expecting these 4 pieces of data when this page is called. So this is where the Ionic creator really kind of takes over and does some heavy lifting for us. So once we've set up these 4 route parameters on the order confirmation page, if you come back over to the order page and click on your order button, there are now 4 boxes here that say, hey, where am I getting this data from? So this is where we would say, hey, size is going to be data.size, graphic is going to be data.graphic, data.note, data.rush shipping. So this is where it knows to get the data from, so that when we come over to the order confirmation page, it will have these 4 route parameters for us. Now these 4 pieces of information, or how many ever pieces of information you're passing over to your page, there really isn't a limit, are stored in an internal system array called state params. So I'm going to come down to our code section. Now you should have the order confirmation page down here under your coding section, because this controller, where we put the array and everything, is for the order page. This controller, which is currently empty, is for the order confirmation page. So all the code we want to use for this page happens over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that order data object that I talked about earlier. So scope dot, I'm really bad with the keyboard today, order data equals. And so just like over on our order page where we set up scope.data and we kind of defined some default values and things, I'm going to pull those parameters out of state params, and I'm going to apply them and set up these 4 parameters inside of order data. So I have one parameter named size, or I'm sorry, one property named size, and I'm going to get it from state params dot size, right? Because it knows size was one of our route parameters. It's getting its value from whatever was in data.size, and then when it passes it over, it will have it in state params.size. And so you could access it, by itself if you want, but this also works. So we had graphic, which is going to be state params.graphic. We had note, which is going to be in state params.note. And we had rush shipping, which is going to be in state params dot rush shipping. So it will go through, pull the value out, put it into this property of order data. But remember I said that when you are just calling order data by itself, like I am up here using this template tag, that it's just going to spit out our key value pairs. So come on back to your order page, click preview. So let's go ahead and place an order for our t-shirts, like a medium, green graphic. I want a good shirt, like all of our customers wouldn't tell us that. I don't want rush shipping, I'm going to leave it there. I click order. And now here is that key value pair notation. So we should be able to see that these are coming through. Now I'm getting some weirdness, so I must have forgotten to click something. I left the template tag off, so I'm actually passing the literal value data.size. Totally need the curly braces, double curly braces around each one of our route parameter values. So instead of actually passing the value of data.size or data.graphic, it was literally passing the words data.size. If you saw that in the key value pairs, it's a silly mistake. All right, fix that. Yay, better. Okay. So I can order, like I said, a medium, green graphic. And when I click order, I should see size is medium, graphic is green. There's my note. I didn't put anything in rush shipping. And so this is what it looks like when we just use one of those template tags to just spit out whatever is in the object. Now, of course, you could always go through and set up, like if we wanted to grab a control here, let's see, which one do I want? Or I can just grab another paragraph. Then you could literally come in here and be like size. We're using order data, so template tag order data dot size. And then we test, and I'm just going to leave it extra small. So when I click order, there it says size extra small. So if you didn't want to, I mean, obviously this isn't a nice way to display stuff. This is more of a, hey, does my data actually work? But then you can create like a nice order confirmation page for the user that's like, here's how your stuff. Or you could even then, on the order confirmation page, check some of these things, create a little function for saying, well, if they wanted a small, so here's your price, and actually display a price and those kinds of things, and write some functions down here in the code section that do some processing for us based on the data that the user has given us. So I hope this has helped in using some of these different controls, getting used to this idea of how Angular takes on data elements in the scope, and then you're able to apply properties and put things on the model using that ng model directive so that you can pass that information to another page. As always, if you have questions, please make sure to send me a comment or an email. Happy apping!